Quick question. How's your energy when you walk onto the stage or into a coaching session? Be honest, are you running on caffeine and adrenaline, or do you actually feel good in your body? Because today, we're diving into the truth that most high performers ignore. Your body is your biggest asset as a speaker, coach, or leader, and if you don't take care of it, your presence suffers, no matter how great your message is. I'm joined by health and fitness expert Esther Avant, who is here to show you how to build real energy, confidence, and resilience without fads, extremes, or boring workouts. Now, if you've been telling yourself that you're too busy to focus on your health, this episode is for you and it will flip that mindset upside down. Let's get into it. Welcome to Present Influence, the show for professional speakers and communicators who want to impact, influence, and inspire with their talks and presentations. My name's John Ball, keynote and communication coach, and your guide on this journey to mastery-level communication skills.
Well, welcome to the show, Esther Avant. It's great to have you with me talking about a topic that we haven't covered on the show before, which is going to be about health and fitness. And we'll get into why in a moment. But first, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
It was so good to see you were talking about something that I think a lot of speakers and coaches don't think that much about necessarily. Some actively work in this area, but a lot don't. And I think it is something that really matters for your health and well-being and energy. Do you work with speakers and coaches at all in the work that you do?
I've worked with some, less focused on speakers and coaches, but many of my clients have had those components of their jobs, whether they're presenting at work or mentoring people that report to them, things like that. What I found is that pretty much everybody is doing some form of those things in their lives, even if it's not their formal title.
Yeah. For our audience, can you give us a brief overview of what you do when you do work with people?
Yeah. So what it boils down to is helping busy people overcome the barriers to better health. And this has been my life's work. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And it's a combination of the surface level stuff that you think about when you think of health, your workouts, your food, things like that. But my work also goes much deeper than that and into how do we actually make a healthy lifestyle that lasts, that it's not just let me do a 3-month diet before I get on stage for a big event, but how do I make this one of the pillars of my life? And that usually involves getting beneath the surface and figuring out what is it that makes it hard to keep it a priority in the long term. For most of us, it's time. We're busy, especially when you're traveling to go to speaking engagements and events. You have a hard time getting into a consistent routine. For a lot of people, it's overwhelm, it's feeling isolated, it's being a perfectionist. So we really dive into the root issues. It's not lack of motivation, it's not laziness, the things that we tend to typically blame, but we actually identify what for you is making this hard and how do we solve for those things.
So like many people in the coaching world, you end up working with some different things because we are holistic beings at the end of the day. Our life categories are not separate from each other. It all bleeds into each other. If I were to ask my audience, if I were to ask the listener to raise your hand if you're busy, I'm pretty sure every listener's hand would go up, right? Is that we're all busy. And I know when we first spoke, one of the things I said to you was that I had been on, and I am on, a journey to improve my health and well-being, which definitely made me more excited to bring this to you, because I do think for speakers, professional speakers and coaches, specifically if you are traveling a lot with the work that you're doing, if you are on stage a lot of the time, you need to look after your health. You need to have energy. You need to be able to bring sometimes a lot more than most people do, because you have to show up at a level above everyone else, and you have a lot of work to do. So what are some of the basic elements that we could actually potentially start to think about that might help us? So you've already said about some of the things that might hold us back. Do we need to start there and look at what's holding us back first?
It helps to really get to the root for you, because then you can focus your energy on what's going to be the most useful and productive for you as an individual. But what I've seen in my career is that so much of what we think is a problem that's unique to us is pretty universal. Like you said, we're pretty much all busy, right? So we don't need to dive into what specifically are you busy with? It's just generally, I don't feel like I have enough hours in the day, and it always feels like there's something more important. So it's solving for that.
So I think that was one of the things that did maybe allow me to justify to myself why I wasn't doing so much in terms of health and taking care of myself a bit better. That paradox that seemed to be there of, I want more energy, but I don't have the time. And it did work out that way, that when I actually started doing regular exercise and eating a bit better, the energy started to come and the time came back. So it did figure itself out. But yeah, we have to start somewhere, right?
Right. And I think a simple kind of reframe like that can be really helpful. Our initial reaction is, I don't have time to exercise or to plan out meals or things like that. But to flip it over and say, I actually don't have time not to, because what I'm currently doing is leading me to be low energy, to not be in a great mood, to have brain fog, to just not be on my A game. And especially for a speaker who's going to get on stage, you need to be on your A game. So it's really less of it would be nice if I could do these things, if things kind of shook out and I had time, to it's actually essential that I make these a priority, because they're going to enhance not just my health and my well-being, but also my career.
Right. And there is a degree to which, like in any situation when you're going to be in front of people you don't know for the first time, you are going to be judged and assessed very quickly. So if you're not looking energized, if you're not looking well or healthy or looking like you take care of yourself, even, people will judge you on that. I'm not saying those judgments necessarily will hold. People can change their minds over time, but the initial first impressions do matter and they do help. So why not have them work to your advantage as much as possible as a speaker? Because if you don't look the part and if you don't feel it as well, it's going to have an impact on what you do.
Right. How you feel about yourself is so important. It affects everything. It affects how you walk into the room, how you walk up on stage, what you wear. It has such an impact that I think, don't even realize it's so much more than, just the energy. It's how you carry yourself. It's your confidence. It's your ability to put yourself out there and apply for that gig or ask for that introduction. And it starts with, yes, what you're physically doing. Exercising will help you look good, and making nutritious choices will help you look good, and things like that. But even before you would see any physical change, there's the mental change that takes place of just being someone who makes themselves a priority and who follows through, sets goals, does what they say they're going to do, just kind of has that self-trust. You develop this confidence, this air about yourself that is undeniable. People notice it when you walk into a room or onto a stage.
Yeah. I do feel I'd say it's been, for me, certainly more than 6 months now, because where are we now? We're recording this near the start of May, and I probably started really getting serious about making some changes back in November last year. And other than a few bouts of sickness, I have consistently been getting myself up at 7 a.m. every day and going to the gym. And I do at least feel better for myself, that I'm moving, that I'm staying consistent with it. I'm doing something to take action on improving my health and lower my blood pressure, like the doctor told me to. These good things that really make a difference. And the consistency that comes with that as well is so important. Like, there are so many benefits that go way beyond just the health benefits, I think, for this too.
1000%. Consistency is one of the 3 C's of success I talk about in my book. It is what will make or break whether you get anything out of what you're doing or not. And I think, to your point, when we are consistent and when we get into a healthy habit, we develop these beliefs about ourselves, these positive beliefs that I am an action taker. I am someone who can hear something like you need to lower your blood pressure and does something about it. I am someone who doesn't shy away from a challenge. I don't love waking up to the alarm every day, but I get up and I do it. I am someone who can be consistent and do hard things. And when you develop that narrative in regards to your health, it spills over into everything else. Then when a work challenge comes up, you feel ready to step into it. When you feel bogged down with pitching and applying and then all the behind the scenes aspect of being a speaker or a coach, you have this inner narrative. Well, I'm an action taker. I'm consistent. I do what it takes. I follow through. And that benefits you, like you said, is so much more than just with your health.
Yeah. One of the things that I have been becoming aware of, because I think consistency in itself is great, and we should definitely, probably is the first thing we need to aim for, is getting some, like you said at the start, you don't want this to just be a sort of a flash in the pan, something that you maybe do for a couple of weeks and then you get bored of it, or, well, most of us probably would like to at least shed a few pounds. And then if you have 2 days into your health and fitness process, you don't see any change because you're not going to, we start to get a little bit disillusioned when we don't see that. So just having that consistency and making that the initial goal was important for me. And I think probably is helpful for other people. But I do know you have to put in the right kind of reps as well, because I would say like several months of swimming, I was not seeing a lot of physical change. I felt better and say lots of good things coming from that, but I wasn't seeing a lot of physical change from that. Unsurprisingly, with low impact exercise, I recognized more had to be done. What would be your recommendations for people to sort of make sure you are doing the right kinds of reps and consistency for getting results?
I love this question because you're absolutely right. You can be consistently doing, I wouldn't even necessarily call them the wrong things, but just not the ones that are going to either give you the most bang for your buck or that are aligned with your goal. I was actually just reading a email about how when planes fly, if they're even 1 degree off, they'll end up hundreds of miles off course. So it's really important for us as well to know where it is we're trying to get, because we could easily be doing healthy things that are getting us somewhere, just not the place that we want to be. Weight loss is a great example because a lot of people will say, I want to lose weight, and then they jump into this really demanding exercise routine and they're running themselves into the ground and they're saying, why am I not losing weight? It's because nutrition is what's going to drive your weight loss. So you're consistently doing a thing that's good for your health, but it's not the most important thing for your goal. So what you've really honed in on is what I call the big rocks. And these are the handful of habits that generate the majority of results. And given how busy and stressed the majority of us are, it makes sense that we try to do less. And with the energy and time that we have, we focus on what's going to give us the most bang for our buck. So obviously there's going to be some variance depending on your specific goal. But generally speaking, and especially people with weight loss goals, because a lot of people have them, there are 3 exercise, 3 nutrition, 2 lifestyle big rocks. And I know that can seem like a lot, but you don't need to tackle them all at once. You're probably already doing a couple of them pretty well. So it's a matter of figuring out where do I need to focus my attention. So I'll go over them quickly, and then we could jump into a deeper dive into any that could be useful. So exercise-wise, general daily movement. And I use steps as a proxy goal to indicate an overall active lifestyle. Most of us, if left to our own devices, would get maybe 3,000-4,000 steps a day. So aiming for gradually increasing until you're over 7,000 steps a day is a great place to start. It means you're being intentional about looking for opportunities to move more. That's the base of your movement is daily movement outside of workouts. Then you've got your strength training. 2 to 3 full body sessions using heavy for you weights that progress over time is the second big rock. And then the third is rest and recovery. When you rest is when your body benefits from the work that you're putting in. So without it, you're burning the candle at both ends, working really hard and not reaping the benefits. So those are your big rocks. Anything outside of that, it doesn't mean it's not good, it's not worth doing, it's anything like that. It's just make these your foundation because they're going to give you the most bang for your buck, and then fill in with other stuff that you enjoy, have time for, etc.
Okay.
Do you want to talk exercise or do you want to go into the nutrition next?
I wanted to talk about the rest thing because I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Because it probably is one of the things that I need to address for myself, because I probably average somewhere between 6 and 7 hours a night, and I don't know. Does that sound like something that's reasonable on their sort of rest and recuperation level?
Great question. So sleep is one of the lifestyle big rocks, sleep and stress management. And these two are the ones that I think a lot of people just try to sweep under the rug of, oh, it would be nice to be less stressed. It would be nice to sleep more. But we don't make a really concerted effort to make it more of a priority. 6 to 7, you're not far off. Ideally, we're getting more like 7 to 9. So you're not, you're probably not at like a huge deficit all the time. I would say, especially if you hear the other big rocks and you feel like I'm doing most of those pretty well, it certainly couldn't hurt to turn some attention to getting a little bit more restful sleep. I would imagine as long as you're taking rest days from the gym, you're probably recovering relatively well. You're not feeling super sore, things like that. You're probably okay from the exercise recovery standpoint. But sleep is really kind of the foundation of a lot of stuff. So if the other healthy habits are feeling hard to do, if you're feeling hungry a lot, if you have a lot of cravings, if you are having an especially hard time getting up to that alarm, if you're having a midday slump, all of that kind of has roots back in sleep. So it's one of those things that often, if you make that the priority, it then sort of solves a lot of the other problems that you didn't realize were stemming from it.
I do, maybe this is because I live in Spain, but I do tend to find on many days, if I do get a slump, I will take 20 minutes in the afternoon just for a quick nap, and
Mhm.
generally no more than that. And then I'll come back, and nearly always I feel cool with that. And I think that's one of the things that does help me perhaps stay on top of this, and maybe why I don't feel that the sort of average 6.5 hours a night is that bad for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that
Yeah,
helps me
well,
out.
it makes sense because if you're getting on average 6.5 and then you get another 20 minutes mid-afternoon if you need it, you're you're averaging pretty close to 7. I mean, the big thing is paying attention to your body and how you're feeling, and if you notice things kind of trending in a negative direction, that's something to address, but based on what you said, I wouldn't really stress too much about it. It seems like you're in a good place.
Yeah. Cool. That's good for me to know. For people who that you mentioned about rest, like rest from the workouts, rest from the gym, what should we be aiming for to feel like a balance and have some healthy rest time from exercise and the likes?
I say 1 rest or recovery day minimum. And it depends a lot on kind of the rest of your lifestyle. If you are traveling a lot and you're always in different time zones and you're jet lagged, if you are really stressed, if you're, if eating isn't a priority or nutrition isn't a priority, then you may need more rest to recover from your workouts. So there's no kind of blanket. I say 1 minimum, pretty much no matter who you are, but potentially up to like 3 per week. And it should be clear, sometimes people have a hard time with the term rest day, feeling like that means I can't do anything remotely active. That's not true. We're talking about rest from intense or grueling workouts. So I do a longer yoga class on my rest day. You can think of it as active recovery. What can I do on the days off from the intensity to support my body in reaping the benefits of the workouts and in making sure that I am healthy and strong to continue doing them long term?
Mm. Well, as someone who used to be an international flight attendant, I can attest to yoga being one of the most beneficial things for helping to normalize the body and to rest and recuperate. That when I started doing a regular yoga practice when I was flying, it made a huge difference. And it wasn't necessarily a lot. It would be like 20 minutes of yoga, or maybe sometimes 10 or 15, depending on what was available, but it always made a difference. A bit of yoga, a bit of a walk, is like nothing intense, but I really appreciate what you're saying there. And certainly for speakers who are traveling, it doesn't need to be huge. Like maybe the only exercise kit you really need to take is a traveling yoga mat if you can fit that into your luggage. So
Yeah, and I think
pretty.
too, part of it is that it's a much easier sell than getting in on a flight and having changed time zones and trying to gear yourself up for an intense run or a heavy strength session. Is That's a lot easier to just be like, I don't have that in me. Whereas if we're talking about taking a walk and exploring a new city or doing a 20-minute yoga flow before you get into bed, it's a lot, you're setting the bar a lot lower, which means you're a lot more likely to then do the thing and then reap the benefits and then have the energy, et cetera, to then continue and potentially do more.
Which I think does bring up for me one of the other things that comes up for me about this, about sometimes the things that you will do will be the things that you want to do. And so if you're trying to get yourself to do things you really don't want to do, there's going to be a lot of resistance. All right. So how do we help ourselves do or maybe want these things more, or find the things that will have less resistance to, I guess?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And especially when you're just starting, it does make the most sense to kind of go for the low-hanging fruit. What am I either look forward to the most or resist the least? Let me start there. Let me groove the habit. Let me get some consistency under my belt. But I do think there does kind of reach a point where, if we are talking about make sure you're consistently doing the right things, if you're consistently doing the thing you want to do, but you're not getting the result that you want, that's when you kind of find yourself at odds where it's like, all right, I can keep doing this thing that I enjoy, but isn't getting me closer to the goal or the reason that I'm doing it. Or I can do something that maybe is less effortless or less familiar, but is going to help me get closer. And that's not to say it's an either or. Obviously, it can be a combination. But I think it is important to, I refer to it as parenting yourself. I think it's important to parent yourself sometimes. There are just always going to be things that we need to do or are good for us that we would rather not do. And generally, we just make ourselves do it anyway, right? As a speaker, there's probably an aspect of your business that you don't like. Maybe you love being on stage, but it's the contract negotiations or finding the events to pitch or the networking that you just really would rather not do. But you're like, well, if I don't do that thing, I don't get to speak on the stages. So I will do that thing because I want the result of having done it. The same goes with this stuff. Is you may not love strength training, and it may never be the thing that you look forward to the most, but you do recognize the value in doing it, or you do recognize that the result you get from doing it is one that you like. So you just sort of say, well, too bad. We're doing it anyway. Like, this is what's happening. I'm in charge here. This is what we're doing. And we can come up with ways to try to enjoy it more with a good playlist or a community aspect, going to a class, things like that. But at the end of the day, there is a little bit of, well, it just has to be done, and I'm the boss here, so I will make myself do it.
We can't delegate exercise.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. I'm sure maybe one day someone will figure out a way to do that, but until they do, it's us who have to do it for ourselves. But I mean, what you say there is like the story of me going swimming. I had no resistance really to going and swimming each day, which got me into daily exercise. I thought, well, I have the principle in mind of the habit being more important than the amount, and let's create the habit first. And then not really seeing the kind of results I wanted from that, knowing I needed to step things up. I needed to get myself back in the gym, start doing weights again. It's not my favorite thing, but I also don't hate it. It's just not something that I looked forward to as much as swimming. And as you say, you just push yourself to do it and say, if I want these results, this is what's going to have to happen. But for me, I found what really helped me the most was the decision had to be made before the day. Because if I'm deciding at 7 o'clock in the morning whether I'm going to go to the gym or not, when I'm still waking up and my brain isn't fully functioning, my baser self is probably going to win the argument. But if the decision's already made and up and out, don't even need to think about it, the gym kit's ready, everything's there to go, I will go and do it. And I won't complain about it. I'll get on with it and I'll feel better for it afterwards.
You nailed it. If there is one thing to take away from this conversation, it is how crucial it is to plan ahead. Because left to your own devices, first thing in the morning, the alarm goes off. Do I want to get up and go to the gym? No, I do not. And around we go. So pre-committing yourself, making these decisions in advance, and then essentially giving yourself the map to follow. Oh, here's what I'm going to have for breakfast. Here's what I'm going to do at the gym. One of the biggest challenges that people face today is decision fatigue. We actually recently polled a lot of leaders, executives, coaches, etc., about their biggest challenges, and decision fatigue was at the top of the list. So it makes sense that you don't want another thing to think about and therefore default to what you've always done. And if you're trying to make a change, you can't keep defaulting to that. So it really comes down to, in the moment, I'm going to go the way I've always done. So what do I have to do differently so that I have pre-decided and I make sure that I follow through on this thing? Could be as simple as having your alarm out of reach from your bed so that you cannot hit snooze and there goes another day that you didn't get up. It's these small things. It's deciding I'm going to wake up at 7. I'm going to splash some cold water on my face. I'm going to go to the gym. My workout's already decided. Or I already packed my lunch, so I don't need to think about what I'm going to do for that. Those freeing up your mind for other things is huge. And using the times that you have more oomph or enthusiasm or motivation to set yourself up to continue to be consistent even when you don't will change everything. Generally, Sunday evening is when we're feeling like gung-ho. Okay, Monday, new me. I'm going to have a great week. I'm going to do all these healthy things. You know that by midweek, Thursday, Friday, you're not feeling the same. So what can I do now that makes Thursday and Friday easier so that I don't continue to have weeks where I start off strong and then I keep falling off?
I think that's really valuable. And so for me, I just can't have that argument with myself in the morning.
Right.
because I'll always lose. But also, I also know myself well enough to know that if I haven't done the dishes the night before, it's like, well, there's going to be something that I'm not going to be looking forward to when I come back from the gym, but it's going to be on my mind as well. So get that done. Get my kit packed the night before, because if I'm having to find my swimming trunks or my gym shorts or whatever else in the morning and it slows me down, the more time I spend doing that, the more time I think, oh, do I really have time to get myself to the gym and to get to the office as well? So I know that I have to have those things ready to go so that nothing is going to come up that's a potential excuse for me or something to slow me down for getting out in the morning. So I'm nearly always out the house 5-10 minutes after I've woken up.
Yes.
And that for me is like, it has to happen that way.
That's exactly how I am also. And I think it's such a smart way to do it. You're just reducing friction. You know from experience, where are all the potential tripping points that I could run into, and how many of those can I resolve before they even happen? And it's just so much smoother sailing.
I think something I do with coaching clients a lot and have done over the years is also creating these cued actions rather than action commitments. We create actions that set them up for the thing that they really want to do to keep things simple. And I think these are cueing actions. It's like you've already started the process of doing the thing that ultimately you're going to do. It's in progress the night before, potentially. So it's already started. You've cued yourself up to do that. So I think already that's easing the resistance as well of, well, you've already started. So go and do the rest of it.
Right. Why would I have done that first thing if I wasn't going to follow through and do the next thing? Something I think you're doing really well is you're connecting your present self to your future self, which is something people have a really hard time doing. There's really interesting research about how the brain activity when we think about our future selves is similar to when we think about a stranger. There's just a huge disconnect between us now and us down the road. And that's part of what makes it hard to do the things that we're talking about, to set ourselves up for success, is because you're like, well, that's future John's problem. He will just be eager to get out of bed and he'll know exactly where his swim trunks are and he'll just have an easy morning. And you're making the connections between like, hey, I'm that guy. And I know from past experience that it's not going to be like that. So let me do him a solid. Let me make it so his life is easier. And it's actually not, once you get into the groove, it's not that much skin off your back anyway to make the sacrifice on his behalf. And then you start to realize how much better you feel by pre-solving all of those potential problems.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And not just for this area of life. I think it's something you can apply to so many different parts of life that will set you up for greater long-term success.
1,000%. And that's part of what I think is so cool about making health a priority, is that all the stuff that we're talking about is also applicable to your family life, your relationships, your career, and you just have a lot of opportunities to practice with your health.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like best about this is that we think better and faster when our bodies are working more efficiently as well. So all of this stuff is going to help you perform better, not just physically, but you probably will feel better emotionally because you'll look better, you'll have more energy, and your brain will work better because of all this. So there's plenty of evidence to show that that's the case. So I think that's all valuable. I do want to come to nutrition, but before I do, something that's on my mind about this is, having been in coaching for many, many years myself, not fitness coaching, obviously, but having been in the area, we often hear people saying how important it is to set specific goals. Does it make a difference with your health and fitness to have specific goals, or can we have more of a general, just want to be healthier goal? I mean, what do you find works better with people you work with?
That's an excellent question, because I do think health is a little bit of a unique area when it comes to goals. For example, the majority of my career, I've worked with people with weight loss goals. And when we're talking setting specific goals, it makes sense that, well, okay, that specific thing would be what number I want to see on the scale, how much weight I want to lose. But what a lot of people have found over time is how much of a double-edged sword that specificity is, where you then feel like if I fall short of that goal, I've failed, when the reality is you've made huge strides toward being a healthier person. It can make it so that you feel compelled to take health to an unhealthy extreme, where it's like, I've got this goal, I have to see this number, I'm going to eat as little as possible and work out as long as possible just to see that number. So I think when it comes to health, it can be a little bit dicey with specifics. Another example would be, you want to lower your cholesterol and you want to get it into the healthy range according to your doctor. And only so much of that is within your control. Cholesterol specifically has a very big genetic component. You could lower yours significantly and be much better off than you were, but still be slightly elevated. And what kind of toll is that going to take on your mentality if you then feel like you failed? Are you going to feel like, well, I tried as hard as I could and I fell short, so why bother? And now you revert back to these much less healthy behaviors. So I do think there's a lot of gray area. That said, if we go with something as vague as I just want to be healthy, we don't really know what we mean by that. I used to do sales, health coaching sales, and I would talk to dozens of people each week, and damn near everybody would say, I just want to be healthier. And when I started prying and said, well, what does healthier mean to you? Everybody had a different definition. So I think it's fine to keep it vague, but not make it maybe as measurable or as specific as a SMART goal might suggest. But I do think you need some clarity on, well, how will I know if I'm getting healthier? Is it that I have less pain? Is it that there's a specific thing I want to be able to do and I'll either be able to do it or not, like complete a hike or do some sort of fitness thing? Is it related to a health marker that my doctor would check? Having a general idea of like, well, how do I define health for myself, I think is really important. So at least then you know how to move in that general direction without getting too hung up on specifics.
I know, I like that. I mean, for me, I have a general aim to get my body fat percentage below 30%. That's one of my big aims. But, the smaller things I would like to be able to feel more comfortable in my summer clothes, because I know that they're going to be very snug at the moment. And so there's some work to do there. But more than anything, I do try to focus on the goals as being the things. The goal is to do the things that will get me the results that I ultimately want. So the goals for me have been more like being consistent with going to the gym and being more consistent with diet and exercise and all that in general. And so really just committing, or saying the goals are just doing those things and avoiding the things that aren't going to get me those results. So that's a bit easier to deal with, maybe less dogmatic for us, or less risky in terms of I don't have to think about how far away that any of that is. If I've shown up to the gym 5 days this week, I've completed that goal. And yet there may be more that I want to do, but that's what I find has been working for me, motivationally at least.
I love that. And what you've done is you've made the distinction between outcome goals and behavior goals. And we can't control the outcome. No matter what, we cannot control what happens. All we can control is what we do. And you're so smart for knowing, all right, generally I know what direction I'm trying to go. These are the things that I can control that will get me there. And if I just focus on, hey, today, did I do ABC like I said I would? Yes. Okay. If I keep stringing those days together, keep stringing those actions together, I'm way more likely to get that result, but I'm not waking up every day obsessing about, am I there yet?
Right. Yeah. I'm increasing my likelihood of achieving those outcomes.
Exactly.
And that's how I like to think of it. Great. So I'm happy that that's a good track to be on. So let's get a bit more into the nutrition side of things now with the time that we have left here. So I'll start with what I've been doing, and you can tell me if I shouldn't be doing this, or if I'm sort of, maybe there's other things I should be doing as well. So I've been doing, or trying to recommit myself recently to intermittent fasting. So kind of going periods of each day, Monday to Friday. Don't eat until 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I just have like coffee, water throughout the day, and then I have an eating window until probably about 11 o'clock at night, really, before I start going to bed. Is that good, or is that like, maybe there's some other things you want to consider here?
I love this question, and I had a feeling you were going to say intermittent fasting. So, okay, the nutrition big rocks, your total caloric intake, your protein, and your fiber intakes. So what you're doing with intermittent fasting is you are addressing the biggest big rock, which is your caloric intake. At the end of the day, if you want to lose fat, you need to be taking in less calories than your body is burning. Most of us in developed countries, eating is a free-for-all. From the minute we wake up to the minute we go to bed, food is available and plentiful and delicious and very easy to eat to excess. So what you're doing with intermittent fasting is you are restricting calories by restricting the time that you are open to eating it. And it's not that the window itself is the reason that you'll be successful. It's that you have, like we were talking about before, you have pre-committed. You have made it easy to decide before you're in a situation whether or not you're going to eat. So you don't need to wake up every day and say, oh, after this workout, should I eat something? Should I swing by this, and should I swing by this place? Should I have this when I get home? You're not having to constantly wrestle with yourself about food. It's just a very black and white, oh, it's before this time, then the answer is no. Oh, it's after this time, good to go. For other listeners out there, it is possible to not lose weight while intermittent fasting, or even to gain weight. I have worked with clients who have kind of used it as license for that feeding window to be a free-for-all.
Eat whatever you want.
Exactly. So
Okay.
if you're not also focused on what you're eating in that time, it's not a magic bullet. I personally follow something similar for similar reasons. I think personality-wise, we have a lot of similarities. And I just like that it's not even a consideration. I don't need to think about eating before about 10 a.m. because I just don't eat before then. And I don't have to think about it. I don't need to stress about it. What I think you're doing really well is that you've created a window that works for you and your lifestyle. A lot of people really stress about, oh, should it be from noon to 6, or, oh no, then I can't eat dinner. Like, the beauty of it is that you get to decide what it looks like. And that goes for all dietary approaches. Whatever you're doing to reduce your caloric intake to lose weight, that's what it's boiling down to. So you get to decide kind of what the rules look like for you. You said, I don't really miss it in the mornings. I can get a bunch of stuff done. I get that out of the way, but having a later window works for me. And that's, I think, what will make it work for you longer term, is you're not feeling like, oh, I've had to shift all of my stuff into this window that's midday, and then I don't eat dinner with my family, or then I can't go out. You found a way to kind of get the best of both worlds. So I think that's an awesome start. And, again, it's not you need to fast if you want to lose weight. It's just, I need to eat fewer calories. And how do I make that feel easy for me? For other people, it's cutting out entire food groups. I wouldn't recommend that. For other people, it's tracking their intake and saying, I can have whatever I want, whenever I want, but not all at once, not in the quantities I might want. I'm going to learn about the balance of how to eat in a way that I enjoy and that fits my goals. I would say what I would focus on within your feeding window is making sure that you're getting in enough protein and fiber to support both your goals. So you want to drop body fat specifically, not just weight, which means that strength training is really important, and eating enough protein that helps you retain muscle and lose fat. That's a priority. And then fiber is sort of, again, a proxy goal for just an overall nutritious diet. What you might find is that it could be hard to eat enough of those things in a shortened window, because they're both very satiating kind of categories. So
Right.
if you're finding, I can't stomach that much protein, or I can't eat that much produce or whole grains in this shortened window, then maybe you consider some flexibility and you say, in order to get an optimal amount of protein in, I'll do a shake post-workout, and then I don't eat until my feeding window. So I'm getting the increased protein. Technically, yeah, I'm breaking the fast, but the benefit of the fast is really just the reduction in calories. So just kind of, it might benefit you to track a couple days of eating and just see roughly how much protein and fiber am I getting in, and then seeing if you're in a good place or if you want to focus a little bit more on increasing it.
No, it's one of those things you said is like the reasons for it saves me time in the morning. So I actually get a bit of time back because I'm not taking half an hour to an hour out of my morning to sit and eat breakfast or make it and prepare it and clean up afterwards as well. So it gives me, I feel like it gives me the time back and I don't miss it. And it probably is the time when I most want to eat carbs and drink a liter of orange juice and kind of things that probably aren't that greatly doing. So skipping out on those, actually, I do feel is beneficial, not trying to stuff them in later in the day. But I like the other stuff is like, yeah, more protein, definitely something I could do with. And but you say not to try and cut out the carbs so much, and don't need to go necessarily ketogenic or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, just and certainly, the beauty of nutrition is that there is not one best diet. There are different things that work for different people. And I think being open to experimenting and seeing how you feel and learning like this, but not that, and putting together your own style is really key. But I do think a lot of people end up with these really extreme dogmatic approaches that they can't sustain long term. And it's like each time you do something that's a drastic change and then you find yourself back to where you were, it just takes a toll on your confidence and your willingness to keep trying. You keep feeling like you're failing, so why would you keep trying? So I think to just generally looking at how you're eating now, what things you enjoy. Most people, there occasionally I've met somebody who's like, carbs, couldn't care less about them. But for the most part, people like carbs. And at the end of the day, you're not going to stick with a diet that you don't enjoy or that feels really restrictive or that you've eliminated things that bring you joy.
Right.
So I think for a good place to start for most people is keeping a food journal for at least a few days, a couple weekdays and a weekend, and just get a feel for what kinds of things am I eating? Are things more calorie dense than I realized? What simple swaps could I make? Meeting yourself where you are and gradually making improvements over time instead of overnight ripping the Band-Aid and suddenly overhauling your entire diet. It might work temporarily, but it's not going to work long term.
Does it help to track any other aspects of the journey as well, do you think? Or does that become a bind for people?
That's a great question. It is a double-edged sword. And I think generally speaking, how you think about tracking, whether it's tracking your steps, tracking your food, makes a big difference. If you are going into it, this is the end all be all, this is the reason I'm going to be successful is because I'm tracking this thing. It's not. The reason you track is for information so that you can become aware of what you're currently doing and how it is or isn't supporting your goals. What you choose to do with that information is up to you. So I think in the beginning, getting a baseline is really important. Tracking how many steps you're getting, how many days a week you're working out, what you're eating, things of that nature. Just help you get your bearings of where am I as compared to where I want to be. We were talking earlier about focusing on the behavior goals. So if I know the big rocks, if I'm trying to walk daily, get my strength in, get my protein and fiber, etc., I need to know where I am now so that I know what behaviors I need to focus on. Generally, I think the best form of tracking is a bird's eye view of a couple main habits. So one example we've been talking about is like that 7 o'clock alarm. You're consistently getting up at that time, but a listener who might be saying, I'm motivated after hearing this conversation. I want to start waking up early too, to do whatever thing, is you take a couple of habits and you print off a blank monthly calendar, and each day you do the thing. You put a dot or a sticker or a check mark or whatever, so that you're able to get the high level view of how often am I actually following through and doing this thing? What patterns are showing up for me? Am I doing really solid Monday through Thursday and then there's not a sticker in sight Friday through Sunday? It helps you learn without getting too obsessed with the minutia.
I like that. Yeah, it's the Jerry Seinfeld method, right? Put the cross on the calendar for each day you do and try and keep the crosses connected as much as possible. I love that. For us speakers, I'd throw this in. I think for our speaker audience, one of the things I found very motivating recently is I've been doing stand-up comedy, I've been doing story events recently, and they've all been videoed. And seeing myself up on stage and thinking, oh, I could look a lot better is incredibly motivating to get my butt back into the gym and get on and do this stuff. So I do recommend, even though you might not like how you're looking at the moment, get yourself video. It will motivate you and you will look better the next time you do it and you'll see the improvements. So I do find that that's a valuable tool to help you move it forward.
Yeah. And too, I just had a very similar experience. And if nothing else, it will help you dress better for the current version of your body. I just got some footage back from an event and I thought what I wore looked good in the mirror, and then realized in real life, it just, some parts just didn't look great. And now I know. I don't think there's nothing wrong with my body. That outfit didn't flatter it. So in the short term, you can use it to just be like, oh, okay, well, good to know. I'll dress a little bit differently next time. And then, yeah, longer term, you can be like, yeah, I would like to feel better about who I see in these photos, in this footage. And this can be my motivation for taking action.
Yeah. And I would certainly add this as well. If you're not happy with how you look or feel right now, don't let that be the thing that stops you getting up on stage and doing this. Like, do that and sort it out whilst you're in progress. Otherwise, it's just going to keep repeating. This has been wonderful. You've shared so much great stuff with us. For our listener, where can they find out more about you and maybe even get some more help from you?
Yeah, the easiest way is my website, esteravant.com. It has links to my book, my podcast, my coaching, and social media as well.
Awesome. And certainly encourage people to check out your book. And this has been a wonderful conversation. And nothing we've talked about has been like, oh yeah, this is so hard. Oh, I couldn't do this. It's all very doable and you kept it very accessible for us. So I really appreciate that. You've been the perfect guest to have for this topic, Esther. Thank you so much for coming on Present Influence.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
If you got some value from this conversation, and I know you did, do your future self a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode that helps you level up your influence from the inside out. And tell us in the comments, what's one small health habit that you're going to commit to this week? Esther and I will be checking in and we'd love to cheer you on. If you want more performance boosting tips for speakers and coaches, check out the full podcast on your favorite app or visit presentinfluence.com for resources, downloads, and upcoming events. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay influential. I'll see you in the next one.